Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I just recently became a father. My son Jay is now, yes, he's 1 year old now. But for us, as husband and wife, it was actually a very big decision to decide to have a baby. I'm sure you've heard this story before, right? Our generation is besieged by visions of the apocalypse, right? This climate change that will kill us. Our AI overlords are going to take over soon. Privacy is dead. Freedom is over. Intolerance is growing. War is around the corner. This is the kind of mental space that our generation lives in. So already we were thinking, should we bring a baby into this world? Because we really wanted to be parents, but we also wanted to be good parents. We want to give Jay a good life, you know. So now that he's getting to this age, you can imagine the big conversation at home is around education. And I'll tell you why. The thing is, I'm from a family of educators. My mother herself has just retired after a 30 years long career as a teacher and then a principal. I've also worked in the education sector for the last 10 years, and through this time I've grown a little disillusioned by this space. And so about 2 years ago, I decided to set up a YouTube channel, Central Board for Fixing Education, that you've just heard about. And that channel is my attempt to try and cut through the noise. Because there's really a lot of noise, right? No one is immune to this stuff. Leaks and scams and scandals and board exams on, board exams off. The NEP, the NCF. You walk out in your city and there are hoardings for Bollywood films, but also hoardings for schools, telling you they'll make the next Shashi Tharoor, Nelson Mandela, Sania Mirza, and Einstein in the same child. I think one thing that has become a casualty is common sense. We're no longer able to talk about education in very simple, everyday terms, you know, without the jargon. I remember I used to get an all-rounder trophy back in my time. I don't know if you remember this term, all-rounder. Now that same thing is called holistic development or, 360 degrees development. Apparently schools are now child-centric, as opposed to what? Principal-centric. So let's ask the most common sense question in the world today. What is school for? What is the education system's pitch to me as a parent? So let me paint you a picture for this, okay? Imagine your favorite school's lobby, okay? You've just walked in. What do you see? It's probably pristine, nice marble, little posh, kind of like a five-star hotel. And then you'll see a bunch of important things that are common to almost every school, right? There's a trophy cabinet, lawn tennis trophy, Falana School Cultural Fest, Best School Award. Then there is usually a TV screen. And on that TV screen, there is a slideshow of achievements. Our children with their own electric car. Our principal with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And then on the other side, there will also be usually a leaderboard with the names of kids and their percentages on the right? All the toppers from the years gone by. So when you look at this, you kind of understand, right, what the school believes is their top priority. And you can summarize in a very simple way, it's achievement. Schools want achievement. That's what makes a good school good. That's what they believe. And it makes sense because that's what the parents want also. When you walk into the lobby and you look at that environment looking the way that it is, you feel very comforted because ultimately what you as a parent want is for your child to get into university, get into colleges like this one. And to get in over here, you need amazing marks, a stack of certificates, tons of trophies, hopefully some volunteer work. We hope you've cleaned the river in your neighborhood on the way. So the parents feel comforted. That's what they want too. So the school is just doing what any business would do, giving the customer what they want. In this environment, we made a beautiful little play called Say Cheese Grandpa. Okay? So this play, the story is very simple. There's a grandfather. He's always sad. And there's a granddaughter who really wants to make him smile. Okay? But when we decided to do this play, we said, okay, we'll go and talk to schools and we'll invite them. We'll meet teachers, we'll meet principals, and we'll say, this show will be really good for your kids to watch. It will be a collective experience, there'll be social, emotional learning, etc. But unfortunately, we are not giving out trophies. There is no certificate for now we have learned empathy. So we were very skeptical. We were worried that when we walk into a school, they just won't have the time. They won't have the bandwidth. They won't have an inclination. Schools' calendars today are packed months in advance. How do we even expect someone to entertain us, let alone let us entertain them? But we were in for an amazing surprise. We walk in and we start talking about this really fuzzy little play, and the teachers and principals welcomed us with open arms. It was staggering. No school said no. Almost everybody showed up in numbers. Once they heard what we were trying to do with this play, the teachers just went from being our clients and customers all the way to our champions in the cause. Because despite the system, despite the bloatedness of the system, the teachers and the principals understand the importance of this. They know what really matters beyond the trophies, beyond the certificates. Which is to say a very simple thing, that everybody in the system intuitively knows that there's something wrong. So I said, okay, let's look for answers, Shiv. There's one place where I'll find the answer, maybe actually get convinced to send Jay to a school, and that is the National Education Policy. If there's one document that gets all the applause about education, it's this one, right? So I said, let's read it. So according to the NEP, the school has to cover the following, okay? Critical thinking, so there should be some debate, some discourse, some rhetorical analysis. Creativity, so theater, music, dance, painting, entrepreneurship cell, robotics lab, whatever you want to do. Life skills, communication, leadership, teamwork, discipline, resilience, teach all of this. Emotional intelligence, that's where Sechi's grandpa came in. Social emotional learning, knowing your emotions, naming them, managing them well. Ethics, don't forget, kids need to learn how to differentiate right from wrong. Their civic duties, their national duties, which brings us to India, patriotism, nationalism, national anthem, national bird, national sport. Also, global readiness. You can't just, eventually end up in Oxford and never have heard of the World War. So global history also, some globalization, some globalism. And apart from that, let's not forget career counseling, sex ed, some mental health, EWS, special needs have to be taken care of. Sports, obviously, you need a bunch of sports. Shooting ranges have to be created. And nutrition. These are some basic things. And apart from all this, let's remind ourselves that apart from doing all this, schools also have to do one little thing called academics. So you also have to do 10 to 15 academic subjects to a pre-university level, prepare kids for college. This is what the NEP wants us to do. And this, by the way, is just the introduction to the NEP. This is the first 3 pages. We are asking teachers to essentially build the equivalent of a civilization within the 4 walls of a school. And by the way, they have to do it with kids. Kids who are still learning to speak, still learning to run, who are going through puberty, who have 3 crushes at any given time. Just imagine I come to IIM Bangalore and I say, okay guys, make a pen. We'll take half the college's graduates, the best minds, to just figure out how to make this pen write well. That's it. Now I say, no, not only do I want the pen to write, I also want the pen to recite the poetry it writes. I also want the pen to be a national pen fight champion. And by the way, sometimes the blue pen will refuse to write because the blue pen really likes the green pen. But unfortunately, the green pen likes the red pen. It's just not possible. It's not humanly possible to do all this. So I asked teachers, how do you deal with all this stuff? So this is what I hear back. The teachers are telling me that they are constantly stressed, constantly rushed. They're losing the will to teach. There's no time to connect with the students. That's what they became teachers for in the first place. There's this mechanized lesson plan in the classroom hovering over them, always telling them what exactly they have to do today. And because of all that, planning and resources and all that expectation explosion, there's just a parade of predetermined activities for the whole year. So there's no time for depth. There's no time for real connection. And the system basically is just churning out these jaded youngsters because they're also in the same cyclone, right? They're just coming out of these schools hoping, just clutching on to that last bit of optimism, last bit of energy that they entered schools with. You must have heard about this latest trend, right? Project-based learning has been made mandatory. A lot of people just applauding it. But on the ground, just ask any teacher, how are they implementing this NEP in their classroom? And they'll tell you, all this project-based learning thing is going to do, and I've heard this from teachers, from principals, myself, all it's going to do is create another new side economy for projects. There'll be recycled projects, there'll be hand-me-down projects, and if you're from Ambala like I am, famous for its scientific industry, you can just walk to the market and buy one. Which brings you back to the most important question. If we really are asking too much of schools, can we simplify it? Can we get beyond this and get to the basics? What do we need schools for? That common sense question. Do they really need to do everything? Or can we focus this discussion? Can I send Jay to school for a very specific outcome? Not everything, just some things. So here are two options. Two options for you to consider, okay? Option one, schools are for economic growth. We want kids who are ready for the economy, who can be productive workers and contribute to our bottom line, to our GDP, right? If we want to do this, let's just do this. So bring industry into the schools, give them internships, set up research labs, apprenticeships, set up mentorship models with the industry leaders, do all of that, build resumes in school right from the beginning. But if you ask me, I think it kind of itches at the idea of a school for me. I don't love it because I think it wastes that incredible potential that we have within that building, these amazing teachers, great facilities, so much energy. So I think that option two is what I'd like you to consider, that schools are for holistic development. But if they are for holistic development, then we leave out everything else. Which means I'm pitching this radical, different conception of the education system. The certification infrastructure, CBSE board, ICSE board, IB board, Cambridge, all of that is not the education ecosystem. Okay? So you separate these two out. Testing happens in a different place, just for certification. And if you are a school, you just focus on education, not certification. Which means we just need two steps. It's really straightforward. Step one, schools don't need boards. You cannot be a CBSE school. That should become an oxymoron. How can you be a CBSE certification body or agency and a school at the same time? It cannot be possible. So you release schools from the expectation of preparation for exams. And you all know what schools are like, right, with exams. 1 month before the exam is just about exams. 1 month after the exam is just about debriefing after the exams. Most of the time, the schools are just talking about exam techniques. They need not do it. Schools don't need boards. Okay? Certification becomes the purview of what we should now call coaching centers. And we are familiar with this. Every entrance exam on earth needs a coaching center, right? You want to give the SAT, you want to give the NEET, you want to give any kind of exam, anyway you have to go to coaching centers. So why are somehow these school boards different? They're certification bodies, they've got a syllabus, you prepare, you give an exam and you get certified. So schools don't need boards. And step two would be to empower the teacher again. I know this goes contrary to a lot of the techno-triumphalist conversations going on in the country today, but I think that this is the way forward for real holistic development. Empower the teacher again. Give control and freedom back to them and say, okay, you decide what's best for the children. You decide what's best for your community. What do the parents want? What do the kids want? And how can you best serve both what you believe to be true as an educationist and what the community is asking for? This disentanglement, this separation of concern will suddenly give these teachers and these schools the ability to be creative again. It will suddenly open up the field to some very cool ideas, which will be local, which will be current. So a school in Kashmir need not look the same as a school in Kerala. A school in the hills need not look the same as a school on the beach. Suddenly your local heritage comes into the school because that's what the parents want to talk about. There's also going to be something very interesting that will happen. The curriculum need not now come from the board. The school decides the curriculum. They can use CBSE books, NCERT books, ICSE books. They anyway do that. If you go to a school under 5th grade, anyway schools are being creative about the books that they want to use in school. There's nothing new here. But what's fun is when a farming community is going to its school, they will bring their farming concerns to the school and ask questions that are relevant. So suddenly all the things that we hope to bring into education, like sustainability, like AI, local culture and heritage, all of these things that we are hoping can enter into a classroom without the board needing to update its entire infrastructure to do it. It becomes very, very flexible. And this is my favorite bit, right? For us as innovators in business, innovators and recruiters in business, there's a possibility of skipping the queue. You don't need to wait for the child to first finish his board exams, then go to a college, get that, then go to a master's, then do that. As an artist, as a director, I'm not waiting for the certificate to arrive for me to hire an actor. IPL is recruiting kids from Instagram now. They don't care, they just need results, right? So we can skip certifications, get straight into schools. When I was in school, I was a model student, right? I was this, like I said, I got this all-rounder certificate. I was topping. When I graduated from school, I had this stack of certificates 3 feet high. I had a certificate for everything except art. I had a certificate for everything except what I was meant to do. And the reason why I'm standing where I am today, why I managed to build a life full of art, full of creativity, was because of a teacher. A teacher saw through the system, saw me for who I am, and came and told me to go for it. That it will be fine. The world won't collapse if you don't continue in engineering. This is worth protecting. This is what I want for Jay. If he goes to school, I hope he finds teachers who have time for him. Teachers who can understand him, look beyond the fluff, look beyond what we as parents see, and give it to him the way they see it, straight. That school, I will send my son to. Thank you.